is Nourishing, the Future, Alternative Proteins, Nutrition and Policy for a Sustainable Food System.
First question up, what are the most promising innovations currently transforming food systems, and how can we ensure they're accessible and scalable in low resource or climate vulnerable regions? So, David, would you like to start first? Oh, yeah, we need to hand out the mics.
Welcome everyone. So I think there's a lot of interesting technologies right now. Obviously we have AI, we have precision agriculture, we have a lot of mechanization and nanotechnology, new sensing technologies. So all of them are actually doing they're all very promising innovations. I think the only thing that we have to be mindful about is how to deliver measurable results, especially in AI that is trained basically on our human knowledge the way it is now. So we have to make sure that we don't repeat the things that we already have. If we train AI on what is already available, then we're not really moving forward. So my only sort of note there would be to make sure that we have measurable progress in whatever we're doing, because all these technologies are quite amazing, but not all of them are taking us to a better place. So we just have to be mindful of that.
Great, thank you. Deepak, have you got anything to add to that?
No, all these modern technologies definitely will be adding value. But basically we have to understand how the agriculture economics work. And there we are seeing a lot of challenges around excess use of inputs, predominantly pesticides, fertilizers, which is also impacting our health. We are already seeing some other countries which are using extensive use of fertilizers or pesticides. They have become epicenter of depression, they have become epicenter of obesity, so all the negative part of putting chemical in your food. Now, how do we solve that? So one technology I believe is very important going forward which is known as CRISPR-Cas. CRISPR-Cas is typically genetic editing technology which can ensure that you come out with varieties in 1/3 of the time currently where the normal breeding works. So you would be able to have crops which will yield 30 to 40% more produce, at the same time would also reduce the usage of fertilizers, usage of water, because they are able to supply specific gene which actually trigger a plant to absorb more fertilizers or need more fertilizer or water. Secondly, along with CRISPR-Cas, which is a biotechnology, if you also dovetail what we call artificial intelligence, and then you have a possibility of doing a lot of simulation within a system rather than actually going to the farm and cultivating different varieties and then coming with a failure which enhances your cost, time, efforts, but all of those things can be done in a supercomputer which will be able to tell you that which variety would be more suitable for a specific climatic zone. So CRISPR-Cas and I would say artificial intelligence not just as a buzzword, but where actually you are able to impact the first basic of agriculture itself, that is seed. Because seed is the 80% of the problem solved. The third I believe which is very important is the extraction technologies. So our topic of the session is also about alternative proteins. Now there is a large part of the world which is actually not consuming too much of animal fat or animal meat, that is India or similar countries. There you find that actually the pulses play a very vital role, and those pulses currently they are not very dense when it comes to protein, and in a country like India where 1/3 of our young kids they are going through challenges like wasting and stunting, these extraction technology can ensure that they can have access to alternative proteins in a way which will ensure they have sufficient amino acid in the body. So I believe these three key technologies are the future of the system.
Great, thank you. And Appachu, as an protein expert, what is the role of alternative protein in all of this?
Yeah, so Deepak mentioned plant protein. I represent the cultivated protein alternative, which is still a nascent technology. It's still evolving. There was a lot of excitement about it becoming a transformative technology in a fairly rapid manner. There have been technical challenges, but I believe the potential using some of the tools that Deepak mentioned, like CRISPR, combining it with AI, but using it in this field where you can grow protein, animal protein. People are also growing plant cells, but to be able to grow animal protein in a tank and provide dense animal protein to large masses of population. This in no way would put an end to traditional meat in the way that we are very proud to keep going, that we all like our barbecue cuts. But this would be a technology which allows you to, in the very near future, I would say in the next few years, you will be having cultivated meat being used as a supplement to a number of products which will be available in the marketplace at a commercial scale. Today it is available in a few countries. It's still not commercial. It's still proof of concept marketing that's taking place. But I believe that this is a huge area for us to really think about in the future.
Great, thank you for that. And Marwan, this is a more specific question to you. How can clusters like Mazda City serve as test beds where agri-tech startups, regulators like ADAFSA, and global investors like ADIO collaborate to de-risk innovation and make resilient food systems scalable across regions?
Thank you, first of all, for the organizers for having us. Mostar City is very proud to be part of this event. It's great to be in the presence of ADAFSA as well, our main partners in everything we're trying to do. And I think the key word for Mostar City is proximity. So proximity of innovators, regulators, and investors in one area is where we can de-risk innovation. And then that's how we can get innovators from around the world to test pilot some ideas. So an example of this is a company based out of Barcelona, and their plan was to utilize our organic waste in the city to create fertilizers and animal feed. And so this was a real example of, it wasn't theory. They came, they set up, we connected them to the regulators, we connected them to our facility managers of the city, and we were able to create something. So if we can extrapolate this, if we can scale this, and find a way to have all the players together and remove silos, I think that's the way we're going to breed innovation. So Mostar City is very proud to be that neighborhood for all these different houses, and we'd like to see more of them.
Great, thank you. Right, on to my next question. How can policy frameworks at the national and international level better align to incentivize sustainable agricultural practices and promote nutrition security simultaneously? Deepak, to you first.
That's a very interesting question, and luckily I'm not in my own country, so I can be a little bit more blunt on the policy aspect of it. See, we have to understand that sometimes what happens is that the policy making, they go with the flow. And in 1960s, we went to our farmers in India and we told them that actually green revolution is the way forward. Use more fertilizers. And then we told them actually now because you are using fertilizer, you will be using specific type of variety which will give you better yields using those fertilizers. Now that led to monocropping, and that led to pest infestation, and then we again went and asked them to use fertilizer, pesticides. And then we went and said that go automated agriculture and use a tractor and all that. And now, in 2020s, we go back to them and tell them do regenerative agriculture, policy will support regenerative agriculture. They were doing 1960s regenerative agriculture. Now say my dear friend actually, no offense to animal meat in any way, whether it is derived from an animal, I'm a meat eater. But I'm still not able to understand that why a government should be supporting a policy on alternative protein, where you want to create a plant-based steak. Either I'll eat steak, right, or I'll eat pulses, or the dal which we Indian eat. Why I want to convert my beautiful dal into steak? Now this is where I believe sometimes what happens is that, and we have seen in the West, many of these experiments have failed. See, policy have to be futuristic. You talked about a great cluster, and that is a way forward. Are we thinking 30 years hence, or are we just trying to get a marketing buzz being created and policy going around it? Same happened with fertilizers, same happened with hybrid seed, same happened with pesticides, and now we are also talking about a lot about biotechnology. Now, I believe our policy has to be visionary and policy has to be driven by two key concerns. One is that it is just not food security, it has to be nutrition security. We have gone beyond that. Now, you'll be surprised that we are having 700 million metric tons of grains available as a buffer in different categories. Right? Now, grain doesn't help your nutrition security. It just gives you something that doesn't lead to hunger. But we have to go beyond. If we want our human intelligence to be better than artificial intelligence, we need to ensure our kids eat more protein, better amino acid, and the policy need to be on nutrition security and making proteins and fats as cheap as possible. That would be the integration.
Thank you. David, any additional thoughts to add to that?
Yes, thank you. So if we're talking about the regulation and regulators, obviously nothing will happen if the regulation is not done properly. And I think the outcome-based standards should be, something that regulators can push forward. So whatever is already a proven technology and metrics are proven, that should be, that should have fast-track regulations. So something that can be approved very quickly and brought to the market and to something that can make commercial sense, something that can improve our lives quickly. Because there's a lot of regulation issues in pesticides and fertilizers and so on. There's a big barrier of entering the market, especially for the small companies. And if regulators recognize that for the new technologies, then the good technologies and the good products will get to the market a lot faster.
Great, thank you. And Lamis, in relation to sustainable food production, what are your thoughts on this?
So I want to talk about the big picture about the food consumption today. The food consumption today is highly moved by the health-conscious people and people with high income, we're talking about the UAE, and younger people who are today spending more and more on healthy food options. So it is really shaping the entire industry of food and how food should be actually produced as well, and how do you want to eat it. One of the things that has been implemented here in the UAE by the municipality, and they have updated their requirements on Food Code 2.0, is that restaurants have to adhere and share the top priority of 14 allergies on their menus. So the importance of transparency today with the end user is undeniable. Users are looking not only on packaged foods, what are the labels and the nutrition, they're also looking into the food that they are eating on a day-to-day basis. Because let's not actually ignore the fact that today, more than ever, people have been recently developing gut health issues. And the more gut health issues that we have, the more we need to be aware of where the problems are coming from. Are they coming from the food production? Like, okay, which farms are they coming from? So one of the things that I'm doing with FoodSwap today, and hopefully we want to do it also in the future, we want to implement some sort of blockchain that can connect people from the food that they are eating today to where it has been brought up, whether it is an animal or it's a plant, so that people feel some sort of relief when they are eating their food and they can really trust the food that they're eating and eat with confidence.
Great, thank you. And Marwan, how can hubs like Masdar City accelerate that alignment between public and private stakeholders?
So with Masdar City, aligning and bridging practice with policy is where it honestly all lays. So, for example, a company having a meeting with a DAFSA on day zero is where you can remove silos, have all the companies aligned, and they have a game plan moving forward. And we can even expand on that. So Abu Dhabi Quality Conformity Council, the Eminence Drug Establishment, all these are regulators that are almost enablers when it comes to this agri-tech world. And Masdar City tries to innovate and host roundtables and involve them from day zero. So the alternative proteins, smart irrigation, food traceability, all of these are examples of companies that have spoken with us. And it's not as if we don't want to be known as a landlord. We want to be embedded in the ecosystem. We want to host these companies. We want to help them grow. So even if they start with a desk or a shared bench or just something minimal, and then we help them, we hold their hand. We're almost a glorified concierge at this point. And it's so nice to be honest, to have ADAFSA and all these regulators to be with us and help push this narrative forward. So I think bridging policy and practice is where Masdar City lays, and yeah, I think the future is promising when you embed the companies and the innovators from day zero. So yeah, Lamis with FoodSwap is registered in Masdar City. So that's an example, a real life example in front of you right now, where we can talk together. We should speak about her experience, and we'd love to see more of the Lamises. So open invite to everyone here. If you want to be part of a fast moving cluster, please come talk to me afterwards.
Next question. How can innovation policy be designed to ensure the inclusion of smallholder farmers, indigenous communities, and women, often the most affected yet underrepresented, so in food system transformations? Let's have a look. Deepak, would you like to go first?
No, I think coming from Global South, I think that is very important. 80% of the food we consume is produced by small and marginal farmers. Farmers who are having an acreage less than 1 hectare. And in most of the Global South, you'll find that close to 65% of the effort on the fields are done by women. But unfortunately, because of patriarchal systems, the money is always being put in hand of the male of the family. Now we need to find a way of ensuring that those innovations reach the smallholder farmers. And I believe going forward, the technologies which we are talking about. Now, for example, I talk about CRISPR Cas. If you are having seeds which are high yielding, they don't need large farms. Smallholder farmers can also increase their yield because the seed itself is the basic, I would say, algorithm as well as genes innate, which can ensure that the smallholder farmers are able to have higher yields, higher efficiency. Secondly, similarly, when we talk about some of the robotics technology, like some of the bots and all that, it removes the need of farms which are 1,000 hectares or 2,000 hectares. They can work very independently on the small farms which would be maybe half a hectare or even less than that. So those type of second innovation, I believe it's very important. Third, actually, we talk about food security of some of the I'd say that well-known part of the world, which is, for example, UAE, Middle East, Europe. And definitely they have the challenge in having sufficient amount of land. But let's talk about Africa. Still, only 1/3 of the land in Africa is cultivated. They have still 2/3 of the land which is available to them. And this is where actually, we have to start thinking about how the West or those who are the developer can fund the innovations in Africa to ensure their own food security, at the same time ensure that those economies in Africa where farmers are making less than $1 a day, it can be increased substantially to maybe $10, $15 a day. So I believe it has to be the technology innovation as well as the business model innovation. And as we in India say that there is a good come that the world is one family, we have to start thinking like that rather than be very, very focused about our own countries and our own people.
Great, thank you. And David, any more to add to that?
Yes, of course, thank you. Well, obviously, inclusion always helps, and that applies to everything in our lives, especially with food, because we all need food, right? So I think the solution there probably would help regulators to enhance the education and bring these food growing techniques to everybody. So not only to the big farms, to the big growers, but also to smaller farms, and also into the houses to educate the people what kind of food they should eat. They can also be educated how to grow their own food, because today with technologies that we have in vertical growing and hydroponic growing, you can have small sets even at home. So if people have experience with growing their own food, they will be much more critical when they go to the market, and that sort of pulls the chain from the other side. The customers will be able to tell the growers and distributors and food growers what kind of food they demand.
Great, yeah, thank you. And Lamis, as a female founder yourself, what are your thoughts on this?
I truly believe I want to add to what David said, food inclusivity is more important than ever. together, and understanding the dietary needs of people is going to be helping us to not only connect to the people, but also connect to the people that are behind the scenes, the people that are producing the food, from the people that are delivering the food to restaurants, to the end users, grocery stores. All of them are within the ecosystem, and for us as startups, we need to be very aware of the entire ecosystem within the food industry to ensure that at the end of the day, we are all here for one mission, which is to enable people to live a healthier lifestyle, as well as enable the people that are producing the food to live a healthier lifestyle. So we cannot say like, okay, we're going to enable them with funds and we're going to grow plants in Africa, but the women that are working in the field, they are not healthy, so that they need to be healthy first for them to also be able to build and do the work.
Great, thank you. And then Marwan, what concrete steps can cluster ecosystems take today to not only support things like high-tech vertical farming and alternative proteins, but also to include smallholders, SMEs, and community-level innovators in that transformation?
So I think we can't just focus on the high-tech vertical farming. We can't leave behind the community innovators and the SMEs, right? And that's where Masdar City comes in with what we can provide, which is physical infrastructure. So shared labs, shared greenhouses, and these are examples of something we're actually going to launch. So in Q1, we're launching a shared labs project, which would have a lot of the equipment that a lot of these smaller SMEs could use, and that will help them innovate and have access to policies and the public in a much more efficient way. And the ADIOs, so ADIO has an initiative called AGWA, it's Abu Dhabi Investment Fund and Investment Office. So these types of initiatives with OPEX rebates and incentives will really help the SMEs, and we can have a more holistic, unified environment with the big players along with the small players.
Great, thank you. And Appachu, have you got any additional thoughts based on your experience?
First, just a couple of clarifications for Deepak. I'm all agreeable to your sense that it makes no sense to extract dal to make a steak. But what I'm proposing is how do we go about converting, because we're talking about alternative proteins, how do we go about converting inputs, which are agricultural inputs, in the time frame to feed a population that can now afford animal protein at a rate very different from what it was 20 or 30 years ago. As more and more people are interested in eating meat, how do we do that in a way that is sustainable, which is part of the discussion today? And cultivated meat is one solution which can offer people a choice. There will still be folks who can eat the slaughtered animal in the way they like it, but cultivated meat offers a real alternative in that sense, which is what we really going to talk about today.
Thank you. Next question. What concrete steps can we take today to ensure future generations inherit food systems that are not only sustainable, but also support healthy, culturally appropriate diets? Lamis, if you want to start on this one this time.
Yeah, this is a topic that I absolutely like talking about, because it's important that we, where does the food start? It all starts from us sitting in with our families and having a meal on the table. So we have all been, trying to listen to the needs of the children. Okay, what does this child want? the mother knows what each child likes, whether this child likes to eat vegetables, or this child likes to drink milk, or this child, for example, is developing a lactose intolerance. So all of this is important for us because the moment that we understand, when we have a data hub for people's dietary preferences and their needs and their allergies, we start to build a system that can forecast the future of what are the most important foods that we need to start working on today so that it can be ready for the next 5 to 10 years.
Great, thank you. David, have you got some additional thoughts on this?
Yeah, I totally agree with Lamis. I think, especially in terms of inclusivity, women are the ones who should step up a lot and have a role in food security and organizing the food chain, especially organizing the choices, how we get food and how we choose that. Everybody knows that the best cook in the world is your mother, and obviously it is a little bit concerning to see that, especially in the food industry, we don't get to see enough females here. And I think that's something that I would love to see change.
Great, thank you. Appachu, have you got anything to add to this?
Well, you know, while we all agree that our mother's cooking is the best, and when I think of food, and I think of food at scale, and I see the transformation in food consumption that has taken place over my lifetime, I completely agree that when I was growing up, eating at home was the norm. We went out to eat very, very, very rarely. But today, when I see young folks, that is just not the case. They have so many more options and so many more choices. And as I look at that, is that when we think of the future of how people are going to consume, yes, we all have our ideal situations, our ideal mindset, but the pace of life, the way it has changed over my lifetime, tells me is that the way we are going to consume food in the next 2025, in 2050 is going to be very different. The kind of foods we're going to eat are going to be different. The same food, but the formats are going to be different. And that's what I believe that we should be prepared for.
Okay, very interesting, thank you. And Deepak, on to you, any additional comments?
So, just a small thing, little different between David and Appachu. How many of ladies sitting in the room, they feel that they cook better than their mother-in-laws? Can raise your hands? So most. So pardon me for that. Sometimes your wife cook better than your mother. So that's a possibility. Now coming back to this very interesting aspect of what do we see in future? I believe everything starts with the production itself. Right? Availability, production, affordability. All these are very important factor for 80% of the world. And I believe going forward we will see that more superfoods. So when we talk about millets, when we talk about pulses, they are climate resilient, they are very dense in the nutrition. At the same time, they are very easy to also convert, whether it is an alternative protein-based meat or it is a simple dal which Indians and Africans eat. So I believe first of all, the prevalence of where residents would be of growing more of pulses and millets. That's one. We'll have to go down, reducing on cultivation of sugarcane, which is water guzzling. We'll have to start looking at actually, are we cultivating too much of rice? Should we reduce it because of its impact on the climate as well as the methane it produces and the water it guzzles? So we have to start thinking about, I'm saying that as a society, as a government, as a policymaker, as entrepreneurs, that what are the key crops we want the next generation to be given and taken forward, rather than actually make them just look in what we were doing 30 years back and we continue doing that. Another thing is that there is a very important debate which also need to be, though it is not the right forum or right panel to do that, food versus fuel. We are diverting too much good food to fuel. Like this whole idea of using ethanol in your car. If it is ethanol, I would prefer it to be in my glass, not in my car.
Thank you for that. And then my, I think, last question of today's session. What are successful examples of cross-regional collaboration in building resilient food systems? So I think we could either look within the UAE or wider globally, so we've got quite an international panel here today anyway. David, would you like to start?
Yes, thank you. I think generally and globally, I think people in the food chain industry, they need to be a little bit more open-minded, especially the growers and the farmers. I don't think there's a lot of very successful collaborations that are done over the borders, especially in the last, let's say, 10 years. The world appears to be more fragmented than ever. I mean, not ever, but in the last 100 years for sure. So it's very hard to get people to collaborate over the borders, and that's why I think one of the solutions is actually to have summits like this, where we can bring people globally to share their experiences. In our business, we had a lot of issues, people to collaborate from different valleys, let alone from different regions, even though we're all different cultures and different people, but we're essentially the same people, and the soil is essentially the same all around the planet. There's only a few types, and you can find surprising similarities when you look at certain types of soil. Like, let's say New Zealand is practically identical to Oregon and Washington State in America. So once we get these people connected, it took us a while to get them to collaborate, but then in the end they realized, oh, it's exactly the same problems. They grow exactly the same crops, they're on the opposite sides of the planet, but it's the same thing essentially. So I think being open-minded and having more conferences like this would solve a lot of issues.
Great, thank you for that. And Appachu, you must have got some shared learnings from this as well.
Yeah, so again, my focus is cultivated meat, and it is an emerging area where regulations are still not well defined. Singapore clearly has taken a lead and established norms and practices, and I think that's a good example where companies have used Singapore as the springboard to then apply for regulatory approvals and have pointed their regulatory authorities towards Singapore. And so we are seeing other countries adopting or taking some guidance, some regulatory guidance from the folks in Singapore. So we saw that happening with Australia and New Zealand when they approved the first product. The US, of course, has gone ahead and established their own norms. But the UK as well has picked up a little bit on the Singapore model. And I know, for example, right now, both Japan and Korea are also looking at Singapore as someone from whom they can take some regulatory guidance.
Yeah, that's a good point, thank you for that. Deepak, have you got any thoughts?
No, I think international collaboration is very important, and we have to do the cost study for sure. Now, I would like to quote a few examples itself that will give the audience understanding. For there is a beautiful organization called International Center for Biosolidarity Agriculture in UAE itself, in Dubai itself, and they have done phenomenally great work when it comes to in Africa. So they have got the knowledge base from all across the globe. If you go and meet their scientists, you'll find that scientists coming from India, Pakistan, from Netherlands, all collaborating and then working in a very difficult geography, which is Africa, where getting things done. Not that easy. Similarly, a second project I would like to mention is it is known as Better Rice Initiative Asia, BRIA, and it is was done by the government of Germany and again in 4 countries, Vietnam, Thailand, Indonesia and Philippines. They've been able to get all great work being done in rice industry or rice production from across the globe and implementing that and going to the level where actually the drip irrigation was done for rice farms, right? Reducing the methane and the use of water. So that's another second project. A third project that deep goes in Tanzania is known as Kapunga project. So 15 odd years back, actually there was a yield of 700 kgs per hectare in that geography. And then with understanding from the West, from India, and that project is today giving the yields, average yield of 7.8 metric ton per hectare and highest yield of 12.8 metric tons per hectare. Again, through international collaboration, again the Indian, the Westerners, all working together, helping African farmers. So those farms are being meant by the African farmers. Only technology, capability and economic practices were imported. So these are, I say that, shoots of, I'd say that success, which can be replicated, should be replicated, and we have to be open about success stories, because pessimism is easy, right? You know, two African countries are not talking, so that actually we cannot do much of a machine. I think that era is over. Now we are in internet age. Like, it's very easy to find someone on LinkedIn and say that, hey, I want to do a project in Nairobi. I'll give for it. I'm having technology. You are having let us do it.
Yeah, that's true. It's good to hear some examples of that. Marwan, have you got any examples from Mazda City taking it at a more local level that you've seen?
I think I've seen an example with it's not in Mazda City, but 𝐿𝐻𝐻𝐵 Marionette, which they're based in 𝐿عين, and so it's a French geneticist, and they use the same technology for strawberries, and then they're using it for dates now, and they're selling the dates here. So this is an example of cross-border innovation, and we'd love to see more of that. You can even see it in the name, 𝐿𝐻𝐻𝐵 Marionette. So we'd love to see more of these, and specifically in Mazda City as well.
Great, thank you. And finally, Lamis, have you got anything to add? Maybe particularly if you're working on, you've seen here at a more local level.
I think we have a lot of innovations when it comes to food production that is happening in the UAE, especially when you look at it's happening already in retail. We're seeing from local farms. We have local production. We have also, for example, and I like, for example, when I go to some of the retail shops that I can find like the Emirati flag. It makes me feel so much safe to pick any of those items and eat them. I feel like they are growing here, so I feel like 10 times safer that I'm like eating something that I'm familiar with. But also in general, because my job as a tech innovator is to see how I can enable the food production's ecosystem. From my side, it's just bridging the gap between the people, their demands, and bringing those insights to the food production ecosystem for them to find what is the best way for them to match the demand that they need. It's all about demand and supply at the end of the day.
Great, thank you so much. I think that's all our questions today. I'm not quite sure we're on timing. Who's timing, but great discussion here and really insightful ways and suggestions, and a lot of cross-collaborating already. Yeah, thank you so much.